What if I told you the problem isn't your desire but your lack of autonomy? Because there's a level of maturity most people never reach, and it's not about having more experience, more opportunities, or more intensity. It's about the moment your sexual energy stops secretly controlling you and you begin to consciously direct it, not through repression, not through shame, not through a facade of control while your inner world is mired in secret despair. Sexual autonomy is rare. One can experience intense desire without becoming obsessed. One can feel attraction without losing one's lucidity. One can feel intensity without mistaking it for destiny. And once you reach that level, something almost unbelievable happens. What deceived you begins to nourish you. What troubled you begins to reveal itself to you. What once controlled you becomes a force you can direct. Carl Jung offers one of the most effective ways to understand this phenomenon, as he avoids reducing libido to mere physical desire. For Jung, libido is a psychic energy, a life force, an inner fuel that can manifest as desire, ambition, curiosity, creativity, a search for meaning, a yearning for connection, and a quest for fulfillment. Here's the first truth that changes everything. When your sexual energy develops, it doesn't always seek freedom. Often it seeks direction. It's about finding a frame of reference. It's about becoming aware. Most people neglect this aspect, and that's why they remain trapped in the same cycle. They seek stimulation, reach orgasm, then feel exhausted. They blame the world. They blame their partner. They blame chemistry. But Jung would say that the psyche doesn't punish pleasure. It corrects it when pleasure is used as an anesthetic. The psychic world finds its balance. If you overextend it, it pulls you back towards emptiness. If you disconnect from your inner truth, it propels you forward under the influence of obsession. Compensation is not cruelty, it is wisdom. Listen carefully, because almost everyone here feels targeted. Much of what modern culture calls sexual freedom is actually a matter of sexual virtue. Not that desire is inherently bad, but because people are driven by impulses they don't understand. They react. They continue. They prove their point. They negotiate. They latch onto something, they penetrate it, and then they call it life. Jung would call this an obsession linked to a complex. A complex is not simply a problem. It is a burden that is not rooted in the psyche, charged with emotion, unconscious and powerful, and which can control behavior. In the realm of sexuality, complexes are often hidden. They seek validation, fear abandonment, experience shame, crave control, dread intimacy, crave novelty, desire to be chosen, feel superior, and flee from emptiness. When libido attacks such a complex, one doesn't feel desired, but rather driven, compulsive, with an inner impulse that says, I need it now, even if it bothers me later. Sexual sovereignty means not being possessive, not because one becomes cold, not because one believes oneself above desire, but because one becomes integrated, whole, and conscious. To understand the ultimate stage of sexual maturity, it is necessary to grasp a concept coined by Jung that most people never fully understand: projection. The following question will help you better understand this concept, if you answer it honestly. When you feel a strong attraction, do you see the person themselves or an inner image? Jung would say that you can see both, but it's the inner image that has a hypnotic effect. The psyche contains archetypal patterns, deep structures of the collective unconscious that shape our life experience. If your inner feminine or your inner masculine, which Jung called anima and animus, is not integrated, it tends to project itself outward. This means discovering something external that one had not perceived internally. One feels not only attracted but totally captivated, not only interested but spellbound. And this spellbound feeling can seem sacred, inescapable, cosmic. Jung called it a noumenon, a powerful, almost spiritual energy that gives something a superhuman dimension. But therein lies the danger. Intensity does not guarantee truth. Sometimes intensity is not love, sometimes it is projection. Sometimes it is the activation of a complex being. Sometimes your psyche cries out, look, this part of you wants to integrate. And this is precisely the boundary between immaturity and sovereignty. The immature person becomes impervious to the noumenal. The sovereign person allows themselves to be guided by it. Read again. The immature person says, I can't help you. The sovereign person says, interesting. Something important is being activated. Let me see what it is. The immature person says, this absolutely must happen. The sovereign person says, I feel a powerful force, and I refuse to sacrifice my lucidity for it. I would now like to draw your attention to something that is happening right now. As you listen, a part of you yearns for a simple rule, a clear label, a quick conclusion. This is the brain's need for certainty. Jung's approach, however, is different. It is based on maturation through tension, because the psyche develops when one can resist opposing forces, without succumbing to extremes. In the realm of sexuality, extremes are evident. On one side, pleasure without awareness. Impulse reigns supreme. Everything is reaction, desire becomes king. On the other side, repression without integration. Desire becomes the enemy. The psyche is divided, and the shadow takes over. Neither of these extremes represents true sovereignty. Both are expressions of good in different forms. Sovereignty lies in the middle. One can experience passion without destroying oneself. This requires something most people have never practiced: contentment. Contentment is not oppression. Oppression is fear disguised as discipline. Content is the consciousness that decides not to dissipate its energy prematurely. In Jungian terms, content creates the vehicle of transformation. Jung's fascination with alchemy was not accidental. He saw in it a symbolic reflection of psychological development. Raw materials, rare materials, must be heated, preserved, and transformed. If energy is interrupted at the moment of its creation, nothing happens within you. No transformation, no integration, no elevation. You merely repeat yourself. And repetition is the elegant prison of the psyche. Names change, faces change, places change, but the pattern remains the same. Jung would say that what is not consciously done comes back to us as fate. Therefore, sexual autonomy depends not primarily on our actions, but on the awareness we cultivate. So, what is the highest degree of sexual maturity that truly manifests itself? Psychologically, it manifests itself through free choice, not as a mere formula, but as an inner state. Your yes is clear, your no is clear. We must not confuse impulse with destiny, desire with identity, nor attention with value. Let us delve deeper into this subject, for it is here that true transformation occurs. Many people use sexuality to construct their identity. They aspire to be desirable in order to feel important. They seek novelty to feel alive. They aspire to success in order to feel powerful. They crave attention to feel real. Jung would say that it's the personality, their social mask, that desperately tries to create an external image. The personality seeks applause. The character demands proof. He seeks validation, but true sovereignty only begins when self-esteem ceases to be traded on the attention market. When your self-esteem stabilizes, your libido evolves. It becomes less forced, not weaker, but more authentic. You still feel desired, but panic no longer accompanies you. You are still drawn to it, but the obsession no longer drives you. You are still enthusiastic, but disobedience no longer motivates you. This is a silent sign of sovereignty. You cease pursuing what hinders you, not out of morality, but out of necessity. Precision is a sign of maturity. We begin to distinguish desire from compulsion. Desire is open. The impulse is urgent. The desire is vivid and present. The impulse is dark and terrifying. Desire expands your awareness. Compulsion obscures it. Desire allows you to make decisions. The compulsion demands gratification. A mature person can feel a strong attraction and ask themselves, what impact does this have on my psyche? An immature person, on the other hand, feels a strong attraction and perceives it as a challenge. This is why the concept of Jung's shoulder is so important, because sexual immaturity is often linked to a blockage. This blockage isn't simply negative. It represents what one hasn't accepted, repressed, or ignored. And this blockage doesn't disappear simply by denying it. He becomes more cunning. He becomes more indirect. This manifests itself through desires, fantasies, manipulation, complacency, a double life, secret phone calls, sudden arguments, sudden obsessions, and a sudden need for control. The truth is this: if your sexuality involves behaviors you don't respect, the problem isn't your sexuality. The problem is you. Sovereignty is being aware of one's own responsibilities. It's being able to say without distancing oneself, this part of me craves control, or even, this part of me is afraid of being seen. Part of me uses attraction to escape emptiness, while another part needs to feel chosen to dare. And instead of acting unconsciously, you consciously integrate them. Integration changes everything because it restores your inner authority. Now I'm going to say something that might sting a little. Greater sexual maturity isn't measured by your physical beauty. This is measured by how little one needs. Need is not synonymous with romance. Need is not synonymous with passion. Need is like hunger disguised as perfume. And Jung said, when one is so hungry, one does not seek the other as such, but as the solution to an inner problem. Therefore, sovereignty also implies a different relationship to solitude. Immature people fear solitude because silence amplifies the unconscious. Fear, shame, anger, emptiness. So you're looking for inspiration. You leave the screen on. You continue a conversation. They occupy their bodies. They call it pleasure, but deep down it's escapism. A truly self-assured person can be alone without collapsing because they don't use libido as an anesthetic. You can be at peace with yourself and take your time. You can feel your own energy without expending it immediately. That is true strength. And when loneliness ceases to be an enemy, relationships cease to be a rescue mission. This is one of the clearest signs that you've reached the highest level. You no longer enter the kitchen as if you were starving when you're irresistibly drawn to it. We enter a temple as conscious beings with respect, full awareness, and free will. Let's return to the noumenal, for it is there that we waste years of our lives. When we experience an intense emotion, the mind immediately invents a story. She says it's something special. Sometimes that's true, but sometimes it's a psychological trap. Jung warned that the noumenal can either uplift you or possess you. When the archetype disappears, the clarity of the ego is lost. One becomes dramatic. One becomes absolute. You become irrational. You make promises you can't keep. You ignore the red flowers because the archetype shines like a god. Sovereignty implies respect for the noumenal without prayer. One can feel this sacred weight while maintaining a certain distance. It is undoubtedly a strength, and therefore one should be even more attentive to it, not less. It's a rare quality. Most people behave in exactly the opposite way. The stronger the emotion, the weaker the conscience. That's immaturity. You might be wondering how to manage this burning desire. That question alone reveals whether your approach is rational or mature, because sovereignty is not an illusion. This is about reconnecting with your inner self. Here's a Jungian method you can use immediately. As you listen, observe how your relationship with your own energy evolves. The next time an urge arises, don't judge it as good or bad. Without moralizing, without dramatizing, without rushing. Do something more difficult. Observe it as energy. Where is it located in the body? How does it move? What thoughts arise? What images appear? Jung worked with images because they are the natural language of the unconscious. Your mind expresses itself in concepts, your psyche in symbols. So instead of reacting, ask yourself, what symbol seeks to emerge from this energy? Not the one I desire, but what awakens within me. Not how I find comfort, but what yearns for change. Not how I satisfy it, but what desires to integrate. This step transforms libido into information. And then comes the most important: maintaining tension without falling into extremes. Jung believed that psychological growth arises from the tension of opposites. At this stage, the contrast is striking. The will to act versus the capacity to control it. While excessive action can certainly release tensions, its transformative potential is then lost. If you repress too much, a separation occurs and the shadow thrives. On the other hand, if you remain calm and conscious, you create something greater. Jung called this the transcendental function. If we cling too long to opposing forces, a new synthesis will emerge. Without compromise or repression, a new internal solution will take shape. You may notice a change in energy. It becomes less sharp, less desperate, less dark. It may gain in sensitivity, clarity, creativity, and courage. This is not fantasy, but psychological alchemy. Matter is heated until it reaches a higher form, and it is precisely there that sovereignty is revealed. We develop the ability to get rid of this burden without resorting to corruption. Most people consider any elimination a form of corruption. They think they will lose if they don't act, but sovereignty encompasses a deeper reality. Energy can be directed, refined, and transformed. This is why there are two types of control in the world. One is rigid, irascible, terrifying, control as a defense mechanism. The other is calm, serene, self-assured, control as conscience. Sovereignty is this second one. However, there is another Jungian tool that accelerates this process: active imagination. Active imagination is not dreaming. It is a dialogue with the unconscious. This involves finding inner figures and energies, as if they had a voice, and allowing them to reveal their meaning. Writing provides a simple and reliable way to achieve this. When this desire arises within you, write a short dialogue. Address yourself. Ask yourself, what do you want to show me? What do you want me to become? What part of me have I abandoned that you wish to reclaim? Then write the answer that feels most natural to you. You'll be surprised how quickly libido transforms into wisdom when you stop seeing it as a command. Because at its highest level, sexual energy is not just about pleasure, but also about inner peace. Serenity arises from the end of the fragmentation of the psyche into different zones. Here, the public persona; there, the secret desire; here, tenderness; there, shame; there, strength; there, fear. The path of individuation, according to Jung, is that of integration, the movement towards inner unity. Sexual sovereignty is individuation, expressed through eros. And in Jung's universe, eros is not limited to romance. Eros is about relationship, connection, the ability to unite without losing oneself, the ability to find the other without exploiting them. Therefore, a truly sovereign person does not manipulate others to get closer to them. They exert no pressure. They do not pursue anyone. They don't conduct tests. They don't use love as a strategy. They present themselves with the truth. Truth exerts a unique power of attraction because what people feel, whether they admit it or not, reflects their inner state. If their libido is tied to a complex, their energy manifests as restlessness, anxiety, hunger, a need for control, and a strong drive for achievement. Conversely, if their libido is harmonious, their energy translates into being in the present moment, calmness, warmth, stability, and clarity. And there's a sign that's almost impossible to fake. A self-assured person can distance themselves from an intensity that doesn't suit them. They might say, yes, it's exciting, but no, it's not good for my mental well-being. One can say, yes, the alchemy is there, and no, I will never forgive myself. One can say, yes, the archetype has awakened, and no, I will not worship it. That is maturity. I would now like to address a subtle point that is often misunderstood. Maturity does not diminish passion, but it opens one's eyes. Passionate infatuation is the kind that breaks and is broken, that burns and fades, that promises and regrets. True passion is a constant fire. It is deep, patient, and grounded in reality. It builds, it does not merely consume. And it is precisely there that another transformation takes place. Your standards rise not out of arrogance, but out of respect for yourself. You stopped betraying your values to maintain intensity. You stopped pushing your limits to attract attention. You stopped trading your passion for stimulation. You no longer live as if your energy has no value. Affirming your sexuality considers your energy sacred, not in a religious sense, but in a psychological one. It is powerful. It shapes your destiny. She deserves respect, and to respect her is to no longer give in to what weakens us. This is why sovereignty is also ethical. It arises from within, not because someone has imposed rules on us, nor out of fear of punishment, but because our own psyche has achieved harmony. Your body and your consciousness are one. You don't need to be observed to be in harmony. Alignment is the very definition of freedom. We now wish to highlight a common pitfall. Some people think afterwards, so I should break up with him. But a breakup may just be another mask, another personality. Jung warned against inflation, against the ego that places itself above others, when in reality it is merely avoiding vulnerability. Sovereignty is not an escape. It is the capacity to be profoundly human without appearing unconscious. This means that one can be tense without collapsing, strong without being cruel, and desire something without being desperate. We can create connections without losing ourselves. We can say yes without denying our soul. And we can say no without feeling hatred. The more you integrate this, the more your attraction patterns will evolve. This is a clear sign that you have reached the highest level. You are no longer attracted to what reopens old wounds. We are drawn to what nourishes our being. On a deeper level, libido is directed towards familial suffering. Jung would say that the unconscious repeats what it has not processed. People are looking for echoes. They are looking for the same emotional connection because it corresponds to an old story. In a way, they call it myself. But my personality type is just a norm. Sovereignty is the evolution of your personality. Not because you force it, but because you become aware of what is happening. You realize that what you once considered exciting was actually fear. What you once took for intensity was actually insecurity. What you once took for destiny was actually projection. And once we recognize it, we can no longer ignore it. That's why awareness is so dangerous. In the best sense of the word, it destroys the ability to indulge in old illusions. This makes you incompatible with your own unconscious games. If you continue to listen, you will be ready for the true test of your sexual maturity. A private test. A personal test. That's precisely what it's about. Can you conserve your energy without needing to expend it? Because someone who has to expend it immediately is not free. Freedom consists of preserving one's energy and choosing one's own path. This is the foundation of inner authority. This is the difference between being directed and being guided. This is the difference between being guided by the unconscious and following the conscious mind. And once this capacity is developed, something else emerges: meaning. Jung would say that the libido does not seek pleasure solely. She is searching for meaning. She longs for the self, the deepest organizing center of the psyche, to become a reality. Those who waste their libido on compulsions feel weak. When your libido aligns with your individuality, you feel strong. You become a person whose presence is palpable. Not because you become more real, but because you are whole. Here is the final dialogue I wish to draw your attention to, not as a conclusion, but as a mirror to carry with you into your next desire. The ego asks, how do I achieve this? Authority asks, what yearns to be integrated? The ego asks, how do I release this tension? Authority asks, what is the purpose of this tension? The ego asks, what am I lacking? Authority asks, what part of myself have I relinquished? The ego asks, who will complete me? Authority asks, how do I achieve wholeness? When you begin to ask yourself these questions in real time, as the energy rises, you will reach the highest level of sexual maturity, not by becoming less alive, but by becoming more conscious, not by suppressing desire, but by freeing it from the shadows. So the next time you feel that urgency, that impulse, that intensity, don't hastily interpret it as a command. Use it as a message. Use it as a symbolic fire. Keep it safe. Observe her. Let her speak. Let her help you improve, because the truth is simple but not easy. Your sexual energy will control it or reveal it, and once it begins to reveal itself, you will no longer be subject to your impulses. You are the sovereign.